raise of hands, who has ever seen their grandma cry? Now, I don't know about you, but my grandma is a pretty strong, independent woman, and to see her cry was pretty shocking. But she did cry when she told me about how she lost 3 of her siblings to an opioid addiction, as well as one of her nephews. These deaths this opioid addiction not only affected the people who died, but also the people who lived behind and were left in the ruin. That's why today I will persuade you that opioid addiction is a pandemic in America and needs to be dealt with. I will discuss the problem, cause, and solution with an opioid addiction. So, one of the problems with opioids is it causes a release of endorphins in your brain that turns off your pain receptors. So people become addicted pretty fast. They can become reliant on opioids within 4 to 8 weeks and will experience symptoms sometimes worse than the actual pain they were trying to deal with before, such as vomiting, nausea, insomnia, and so much more. Psychiatry.org, as of June 2021, stated that synthetic opioids were involved in 87% of opioid deaths and 65% of overall drug overdose deaths. Despite the ramifications and the number of deaths still increasing, people still keep turning to opioids. The CDC.gov stated in an article that the number of opioid deaths increased more than 16% from 2020 to 2021. And people will become addicted to opioids and have nowhere to go because there's not many facilities that will take them in or that aren't already filled with so many other people that they turn them away or they just don't go there in the first place. And then they struggle on their own, and often that leads to an overdose or a death. No one knows for sure what causes an opioid addiction or who's more susceptible, but there are some things that factor in, such as the misuse of opioids. Whether that be legal opioids, illegal, or shared, the misuse can cause so much harm. Mayo Clinic published an article on November 24th of 2023 that stated the misuse of opioids caused 90 people in the U.S. to die every day, which is just a crazy high number, and we definitely need to deal with that problem. It releases, as I stated earlier, it releases an endorphins, which turn off your pain receptors, and you can become so addicted to that feeling that you just desire to have the opioids back at once. And so, but this time you need to have a stronger amount because you built up a tolerance to it, and often your doctor won't prescribe a stronger amount. And since your doctors won't prescribe a stronger amount, often people will turn to the streets and they will find opioids elsewhere, but it's often laced with harmful drugs such as fentanyl or heroin. The Department of Health and Human Services in 2017 stated in an article that 59% of opioid deaths involved fentanyl. Despite all these problems that we face in America, there are certain solutions we can do to help those around us who are struggling or in need because of their opioid addiction. So one of those ways is making more methadone clinics. The methadone clinics treat addiction. So people can go there when they're struggling, or their doctors can refer them to this facility, and they can learn how to cope with what they're feeling in a positive light and learn how to deal with the withdrawal symptoms. An article of by the National Library of Medicine quoted from Dr. Freeman that there are only 900 methadone clinics nationwide. So one of the ways we can help solve opioid addictions is by creating more methadone clinics, so it's more public to those who are in need, and there's more around them so they don't have to travel far, or it's an easier, viable option. Also, prescriber limits. We need to set prescriber limits. There are a few exceptions to this case, like if you have active cancer or you're on end-of-life care, then it's okay to prescribe that, but prescriber limits for opioids would set it. So unless it is absolutely necessary, we are not prescribing opioids to people because we know the detrimental ramifications it can have on people and the loved ones around them, that if we set limits on that, it would hopefully cut back on opioid related deaths in a large quantity. An article by Brookings published on October 18th of 2019 stated in some states there are more than one opioid prescribed per person each year. So right now we kind of have an overprescribed amount of opioids, and it's kind of just the first solution to doctors because it's so easy for people to manage their pain that way. But in the long term, it is just not a good option, and it is doing more harm than good in America. So today I discussed the problem, cause, and solution with the opioid pandemic in America. I persuaded you that opioid addiction is a pandemic in America and needs to be dealt with. And like my grandma, who lost so many siblings and family members to this opioid addiction, I hope that as a country we can move forward in finding ways to help prevent these deaths and prevent these addictions from happening, so more lives can be saved and less trauma can be caused.